Stay tuned for a 2-for-1 card project that's sure to maximize your time in the craft room. Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for Alta New. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a 2-for-1 card project that features the brand new Stencil Art Ditsy Flowers Wallpaper Stencil set. And I am going to show you a simple way to add a little bit of shine to this background. Now you'll notice that as I'm doing my stenciling, I'm actually using a larger piece of cardstock than I need, but I will be lining up each of these stencils along that right edge and the lower edge. So I'm making sure that lower right-hand corner is lined up with my cardstock every single time. And I'm starting with stencil 1 here, and I'm using Misty Morning. I'm creating some light and some dark areas, but I'm not overthinking the shading at all. I'm also using some mini ink blending brushes because that allows me to control where I'm putting my color, and it allows me to put more than one color of ink on each stencil. For the next area, I'm going to be using a little bit of honey drizzle here for my yellows, and you'll notice that the only color family that I'm using multiple colors in is the blue family, and we'll go back to that in just a bit. Now on these stencils, you'll notice that there is an etched outline to help you line them up. That is one way to do it, but if you line it up in the corner of your Stamp Wheel 2.0 or along the corner of your cardstock, you'll make sure that these stencils line up every single time. Now for stencil number 2, I used Cloudy Sky and again Honey Drizzle because I'm not using multiple colors in the color families for any color other than my blues. And what I'm doing instead of using multiple colors is just adding a light layer for my first layer and a heavier layer for the second layer or for the detail layers. Now I'm moving on to Razzleberry for these large florals in the center. I used the terracotta on these smaller florals on stencil number 3, and I'm just blending in. Again, you can see I'm doing some light and some dark areas, but I'm not overthinking the shading. I'm just kind of having a good time, and I love the way that all of these colors came together. I also like to wipe down my stencils before I remove them. And now I'm moving on to stencil number 4, and that includes some detail layers for the florals that I've already stenciled. So again, using the same colors for layer 1 and layer 2, just going in with a heavier hand for layer 2. I also have some details on those blue florals, and now I'm moving to Nimbus for those darker details on the blue florals. Now stencil number 5 has a couple of floral centers in this upper left-hand corner. I'm blending those using a micro blending brush, and then I switched back over to my small blending brush for this green opal. Now we're on stencil number 5 of a 7 stencil set, and I wanted to point something out here for you. Up to this point, I have been stenciling all the stencils in order, and you'll know which stencil you're working on because it's etched into the stencil. It's a helpful little tool for building your pattern, but you don't always have to go in order. So once I'm done with stencil number 5 here, I'm actually going to skip stencil number 6, and I'm going to do that at the very end. And that's because for stencil number 6, I'm going to add some shine with some shimmer relief paste. So now I'm adding stencil number 7, and I'm coming in with a lighter sage colored green here for this greenery. And once I have all of this blended on, I will go back to stencil number 6. And I'm going to position that again using the edge of my cardstock as my guideline. So now that all of my inking is done, I can go back to stencil number 6 and position that. And for this stencil, I'm going to use Shimmer Relief Paste in the pearl color. This is going to add some shine and a little dimension to the detail layers on those darker green leaves, as well as to the centers of some of these florals. I'm using a little mixed media palette knife here to spread it on. This Shimmer Relief Paste is kind of like the consistency of mayonnaise. It goes on really smooth, and it's easy to kind of push into the smaller openings of the stencil, and then I will smooth it out, and I'll be very careful when I remove my stencil. I'm going to lift it straight up. I'm just grabbing it with some tweezers and lifting it straight up. You'll also want to make sure that you clean your stencil right away, as well as your palette knife. Now look at the shine that I have on those flower centers and some of the leaf layers. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Now, normally I would wait for this to dry and then roll my background off of my sticky mat, but this time I decided just to pull it up carefully. And I am going to do some work on my card projects while this dries. Now, because I don't have a very thick layer of this shimmer relief paste, it's not going to take terribly long, but look at this. I think this background is beautiful. Now this background's a little bit larger than a standard A2 size card front, so that's going to allow me to trim it down into 2 pieces and create a 2-for-1 with just one stenciling of this background. For my sentiments on my cards, I'm using the Timeless Sentiments die set, and I'm die cutting the shadow layers from vellum. I love a good vellum shadow layer on my sentiments. And for the actual word dies of this die set, I am going to use the Milky Way glitter cardstock. Look at this cardstock. It is so shiny and so beautiful, but I didn't really want to bring in another color, and so I'm using this Milky Way color, which is a beautiful white cardstock, white glitter cardstock. I ran that through my die cut machine. I did add a metal shim to my die cutting sandwich to make sure that this glitter cardstock cut beautifully. And then I'm going to die cut these word layers again from some Nimbus cardstock. This Nimbus cardstock matches the darkest blue ink that I used in my stenciling, so it's going to tie in beautifully. I'm going to use this darker blue layer as a shadow layer on my glitter sentiment, so I'm just going to offset it just a bit and then mount the entire thing onto the vellum. I'm just trying this out to make sure that I like it. And once I know that I'm due, I'm going to use the glue from Altenew, and I'm going to add some liquid glue to the back of my glitter die cut piece. I love that this glue has a fine needle tip to it so that I can really control where I'm putting it. And I'm using some tweezers to place the glitter cardstock on top of that darker blue Nimbus cardstock and just offsetting it slightly so that I have just a little bit of a blue shadow. I'm going to repeat this process on that Hello die cut as well. And once I have those stacked up with their shadow layer, I am going to add some more liquid glue to the back and position this on the vellum shadow layer. I guess that's the proper shadow layer. The other one's the offset layer. Now, based on the size of the background, I decided to make some cards that are not standard A2 size cards. So I'm trimming this Misty Morning cardstock to 5 1/8 inch by 3 3/8 of an inch. And that's just like one little tick mark past the 3 1/4 inch mark. So you can see I'm actually sliding my cardstock over, and when I get it to the perfect position, I'm going to trim it. Now for the card bases, I started with some cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and I scored it at 5 1/2 inches to create a top folding A2 size card. Then I took this over to my trimmer and I trimmed this at 3 3/4 inches. So I have about 3 3/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches for my finished card size. Now that my stenciled background is dry, I'm trimming off all of the excess that's around the pattern. And I'm going to trim this down at about 3 inches. This is going to give me 2 panels that measure about 3 inches by a little less than 5 inches. So it's kind of not a standard background size, but that's great because it allows us to create 2 mini cards that are just adorable. Now, I decided to add a little flair to these backgrounds by creating an angled cutout. And so I'm taking the 2 bottom corners of this panel and I'm lining one up with 1 1/4 inches and the other with 2 1/4 inches. So you can see it's in there at an angle, and I'm going to trim this background at that angle. Now I'm going to slide the other piece through, this larger piece here on the right-hand side, to the 1/4 inch mark and make sure that that angle is lined up on that 1/4 inch mark and trim off about 1/4 inch along this angle. And that's going to leave a gap for that Misty Morning cardstock to show through on our backer piece. Now, once I have these cut at an angle, I will add some foam adhesive. This is the Instant Dimension foam adhesive from Altenew to the back. I'll remove the backer and I'm going to start by positioning the upper piece, making sure that my borders are even along the top and the sides of this panel. So I'm positioning it where it's kind of lined up around those top 3 margins, and then I added my lower piece the same way. And then I grabbed my sentiment and added those on with some foam adhesive as well. Now I love dimension on my cards, so I added even more instant dimension foam tape to the back of these card panels and added them on to my card base with that foam adhesive. And this just gives it a little more oomph. But of course, you could skip any of these layers of foam adhesive that you prefer. I'm going to finish both of these cards off by adding some Milky Way Gem Sparkles to the background. These are some white kind of gem shaped embellishments. I liked that they didn't bring in too much color, but they added another simple element of shine, and this is a touch of sparkle after all. So that finishes off my 2-for-1 card projects featuring this brand new Stencil Art Ditsy Flowers Wallpaper background stencil set. I absolutely love this. It almost kills me to cut up these background pieces, but when I see that I can get a 2-for-1 card project out of one stenciling of this background, I mean, I just couldn't resist. I love a product like this that really allows me to maximize my time in the craft room. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there, or you can head on over to the coordinating blog post. I'll have that linked in the YouTube description below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to say thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. I'm so glad you're here. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of the paper crafting and card making video tutorials shared here. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye!